I just wrapped up my series on players you should be drafting at every position in this year's fantasy drafts, but now equally as important, I'm going to be sharing players that I'm going to be fading at every position. If you burn a pick in the first half of your drafts, you're putting yourself at a major disadvantage to winning your leagues, and this is especially true in deeper leagues. Now, I know any player can get hurt any given week. A lot of things can happen that are just simply out of anyone's control, but there are a bunch of guys entering the season already carrying a bunch of concerns, and we simply don't need to be drafting any of these players. Let your teammates take one for the team and take the gamble on some of these players. So in this video, we're going to be looking at 5 running backs that fall into this category. And we're going to jump right in with the first back, and that is Joe Mixon. So even before the recent injury update on Joe Mixon, he was already a player I was wary of drafting. But now with the latest news, he is a complete fade for me. First off, no disrespect to Joe Mixon as a player. He's won me some big fantasy leagues being one of my starting running backs. And he's been a phenomenal running back throughout his NFL career. He even posted 1,000 yards last year with an injured ankle behind a terrible Texans O-line. But now we have news that Mixon is going to miss an extended period of time with a foot injury after already entering training camp with an injury designation. So this is concerning on its own for a 29-year-old running back. But when you pair with the other ankle and foot injuries he's piled up these past few seasons, this could be a lingering issue. And that means fantasy instability for Mixon owners at the running back position. So Joe Mixon currently has an ADP, putting him at the end of the 4th round in PPR drafts. And I do suspect this is going to fall probably closer to the middle of the 5th, end of the 5th round as we get closer to the end of the summer. But even then, you're likely drafting him as your RB2 or starting flex option. And I simply can't justify spending a pick in the top 5 rounds on an aging running back we know is going to be battling a frustrating injury and most likely going to miss a good amount of weeks throughout the season. So I keep mentioning his age because there's proof that running backs typically tend to regress after hitting that age of 29. On your screen here, you have the running back age cliff. The numbers on the y-axis represent total yards, and the numbers on the bottom represent age. The black line you see is the average number of rushing yards by a running back in a single season from the age of 21 to 33. And this data includes 723 running backs since 1970 who had back-to-back seasons with 150 carries or more between the ages of 21 and 32. So basically, this just gives us the general career trajectory of a productive NFL running back. And that blue line you see just represents what you can expect from a top-level running back in the NFL at each age based on these trends. So Joe is entering that expected downturn at the mark of 29. And if injuries and age aren't enough to scare you, there is more. So you're putting a running back with all these concerns behind an extremely questionable O-line in Houston. PFF gave Houston the worst O-line grade in the league last season, and this offseason, they traded away 5-time Pro Bowl tackle Laremy Tunsil. So some really concerning stats from this O-line last season. They were tied for the 2nd worst in the league at run block win rate, and this is how often the offensive line successfully executes a block or a run play. They were 18th in the league at yards before contact on a run, and they had the 2nd worst stuff percentage in the league. And that's how often a running back is getting tackled at or behind the O-line. So again, there's just way too much going against Joe Mixon here. And if you need a running back at this stage of the draft in the 4th or 5th round, target guys like RJ Harvey, James Conner, Aaron Jones, Caleb Johnson. Let someone else carry the high risk, mid reward baggage that comes with Joe Mixon. Next up, we have a running back with a 3rd round price tag, and that's Breece Hall. As a 3rd round pick, Breece Hall is going to be one of your starting running backs, and he might even be your RB1. And I hate to break it to you, but if he's your RB1, I seriously think you're drastically lowering your chances to winning your league this year. This isn't a knock on his talent at all, but it's more so the situation he finds himself in this year in New York. Breece is currently being drafted as the PPR RB12 after he was the PPR RB16 last season, and the Jets found themselves behind in a lot of games last season, and the Jets are gonna be playing from behind a lot again this year with a brand new coaching staff. Their over-under on wins is set at 5.5 games, and their Vegas lines set for the offense and its players start to paint a really clear picture for us that Vegas does not project the Jets offense to be very productive. And speaking of a new coaching staff, head coach Aaron Glenn has publicly stated multiple times this offseason that Braylon Allen is going to get a lot of carries. So he's going to eat significantly into Breece Hall's touches. Now, I wouldn't expect a straight up 50-50 split between the two backs because Breece's ceiling is obviously a lot higher. But Braylon Allen is not a scrub. He showed a lot of promise in his rookie year. and he's going to demand carries, especially closer to the goal line. Not only is Braylon Allen going to steal opportunities from Breece Hall, but you also have Justin Fields in at quarterback now, who is going to 100% handle a significant number of goal line carries. So last season in Pittsburgh, between weeks 1 and 6, when Fields was the starting quarterback, he had 11 rush attempts inside the 10-yard line, resulting in 5 touchdowns. Najee Harris, the more than capable running back one in Pittsburgh last year, only had 7 carries and 0 touchdowns in that span. The entire running back room in Pittsburgh only had 8 carries and 0 touchdowns inside the 10 between that span of weeks. And you may be thinking, all right, that's just inside the 10. That can't be the case when we start looking inside the 20, right? Well, think again. Inside the 20 in those same weeks, Fields had 17 carries for 5 touchdowns, and the entire Steelers running back room had the same number of carries for half the yards and 0 touchdowns to show for it. So while Fields racked up 55 fantasy points in the red zone in those 6 weeks as a starter, the Steelers running back room combined for 4.6 points. So it's extremely unwise to invest a pick as high as your third in a player we know is going to find himself in an unfavorable game script throughout the season, and he's not even going to get all the work in the red zone. So these running backs could bring you sorrow this season, but let me bring you some triumph. My fantasy football draft guide is now available to the public. This guide will have all my rankings, notes, projections, and so much more. As a computer scientist, I've created advanced AI and machine learning models on top of my countless hours of research that could give you the winning edge this season. Secure your guide by emailing me, messaging me on X, or just commenting down below. The price you pay today is the price you pay for the rest of your life. So as this channel grows and I hike up the price next summer, you're always going to pay what you paid today. And since this is my first summer on Yam Talks, I will be giving out one guide every video for the rest of the summer. All you have to do is subscribe, like this video, and tell us a running back you are going to be fading this year in the comments below. And a week from today, I will choose a winner from your comments. All right, so back to the video. The next running back who seems to just be on everyone's love list this year in their rankings, but I'm not going to be touching him, and that's Kenneth Walker. So everyone wants K9 to be a top 12 fantasy running back so bad, but we still haven't seen it. The highest he's ever finished as a running back in PPR is as the running back 18, and he's never played more than 15 games in a season. And last year, it finally looked like he was going to have that breakout year, but then he began to pile up even more injuries than he's had in the past, and playing in only 11 games, he finished as the RB 27. So if we're being honest too, when K9 gets hurt, Zach Charbonnet comes and fills in, and Zach Charbonnet outputs a similar fantasy production. Like, he's not as explosive as Kenneth Walker, but in terms of fantasy, he has almost identical production as a starter. And Kenneth Walker's ADP currently puts him as the RB 15 in the 4th round of PPR drafts. And guys I'm way more comfortable drafting over Kenneth Walker in that range are players like Chuba Hubbard, Amarian Hampton, James Conner, and I'd even go as far to say I'd rather draft RJ Harvey and Aaron Jones in the 5th round. I'm not taking the risk with drafting an injury-prone Kenneth Walker here as one of my starting 2 running backs when you have safer, higher upside options in rounds 4 through 6. It's not even like Kenneth Walker's on an offense like Minnesota or be on an offensive line like Denver's where we can expect a ton of scoring chances for him. So I'm not buying into the hype on Kenneth Walker on this one, so that's my take with him. And the next we're going to move on to rookie. I wasn't planning on drafting this guy even before the recent criminal charges, but that just solidifies the fade status for me, and that's Quinshon Judkins. There's just way too much baggage here to justify drafting Judkins. So we'll start with all the reasons before he even beat his girl. He's a rookie running back drafted to the Cleveland Browns, a team that currently doesn't know who their quarterback is, doesn't have an identity, plays in maybe the toughest division in all of football, and they have a win total set at 4.5, which is the lowest in the league. So they're going to be playing from behind in most their games this season. Not only that, but Judkins was never guaranteed the lead back role when he was drafted. You still have Jerome Ford, who's proven to be a solid veteran running back, and they also drafted another really talented rookie in Dylan Sampson. Dylan Sampson was not brought in for charity. They used a pick on Dylan Sampson, envisioning a 1-2 punch with both Judkins and Sampson. And now Judkins is currently in prison. He's the only 2nd-round pick not to have signed his rookie contract. And he's missing training camp as a rookie, which is so big. He's going to be suspended by the NFL for at least, I'm going to guess, 4 weeks. And the Browns currently are cautiously optimistic that he'll be signed to the roster. whatever that means. So Judkins definitely has the talent to be good later in his career, maybe even next year, but I'm not wasting a draft pick on Judkins this year. He's currently going in the 7th round. Even if he's an 8th round, 9th round pick, I can't justify drafting him when you have all this against him. And one last thing, with the recent Judkins news, this makes Dylan Sampson a really fine target for best ball drafts and a late pick in deeper redraft leagues. And then lastly, you have another rookie, and that's Cam Skattebo. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one from Giants fans. I already know it. Cam Skattebo is a dog, but that's not enough for me to take him in the 8th round where he's currently going. The Giants running back room already has Devin Singletary, who contributed 400 yards last season, and a player I'm way more higher on than both Skattebo and obviously Singletary is Tyrone Tracy. As a rookie last year, he had 192 carries for 839 yards and added 38 receptions and 284 yards to that. And just beyond the numbers, he looked really dynamic on the field. So he's not going to be phased out of this offense by a 4th round running back who's still honestly really unpolished for an NFL player. And I think we'll see both Tracy and Skattebo get their touches throughout the season, but this isn't a Giants team that can sustain a two-headed monster in the backfield like Detroit can, considering that they're not projected to win a lot of games, and they're going to be looking to pass the ball more often than not. And adding more fuel to the fire, Giants running backs this year have the 2nd toughest strength of schedule in the league, which does not fare well for a rookie on what is most likely going to be a losing team. And this isn't college where Skattebo is going to be out there bulldozing people. This is the NFL, and we're not going to see what he did in the college football playoffs every single week. If Skattebo was like a 10th, 11th round pick, I'd be fine with it, but I'd be looking to go in another direction here in the 8th round with Skattebo. So those are 5 running backs I'm going to be fading in all my drafts this year. I've already started to fade them in all my best ball drafts and things like that, but let me know if any of these takes are crazy. And keep an eye out for my videos on wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends. All that will be out soon. And thanks for watching.